They laughed when they saw it. Small wheels, thin metal, no armor, no turret. To trained soldiers, it looked like a child's toy dropped onto a battlefield of giants. Enemy scouts mocked it openly. Officers ignored it. Veterans bet it wouldn't survive an hour under fire. But by the end of one single morning, 30 attackers lay dead. A full enemy advance was stopped, and the same vehicle they laughed at became a legend whispered in fear. This is the true wartime story of the tiny Jeep they underestimated. And the morning it turned mockery into massacre. World War II was not just a war of massive tanks and heavy bombers. It was a war of speed, improvisation, and survival. Armies needed machines that could move fast, carry men and weapons, navigate mud, snow, sand, and ruins, be repaired with almost nothing. The problem? Most military vehicles were too heavy, too slow, too expensive, too fragile for chaotic front lines. Commanders wanted something simple. What they got instead was something revolutionary. When the first light reconnaissance Jeep rolled into service, reactions were brutal. Soldiers said, "This thing won't stop a bullet. It's thinner than a kitchen table. One artillery blast and it's gone." Enemy forces saw it and laughed. Compared to tanks and armored cars, the Jeep looked exposed, light, almost civilian. But what they didn't understand was what it sacrificed in armor. It gained in freedom. The Jeep could go where tanks couldn't. It could hide where trucks couldn't. And it could strike where no one expected. At dawn, somewhere along a contested front, a small Allied unit was given a near-impossible task. Their orders: hold a narrow supply route, delay an enemy assault, buy time for reinforcements. The problem? They were outnumbered, outgunned, and positioned in terrain perfect for an ambush. Command expected heavy losses. They assigned a handful of infantry, one light machine gun, and one Jeep. That Jeep, the one everyone mocked. The driver was not a reckless hero. He was quiet, experienced, observant. He understood one thing clearly: if we fight like everyone expects us to, we die. Instead of using the Jeep as transport, he turned it into a weapon of deception. The Jeep was placed in plain sight. Not hidden, not armored, visible. Enemy scouts spotted it almost immediately. They reported, "Light vehicle, minimal resistance, easy breakthrough." The enemy commanders smiled. They advanced aggressively. That was their first mistake. As the sun rose, the enemy assault started. Infantry moved fast, confident, uncareful. They believed the Jeep would flee or be destroyed instantly. Instead, the Jeep moved fast. It fired once, then vanished behind terrain, then reappeared from another angle, then fired again. Enemy soldiers stopped. They couldn't understand where the fire was coming from, how many defenders there were, why the same Jeep kept appearing everywhere. The Jeep wasn't fighting alone. It was coordinating chaos. The driver used speed, dust, noise, timing. He never stayed still. Every time the enemy adjusted, the Jeep had already moved. From their perspective, fire came from left, then right, then behind. Panic began to spread. The machine gun mounted on the Jeep was light, but accurate. Each burst was short, each shot calculated. Enemy soldiers dropped one by one, not in a heroic charge, but in confused terror. Believing they were facing a larger force, the attackers split their units. That decision killed them. The Jeep exploited every gap. It struck isolated groups, ambushed exposed squads, disappeared before retaliation. 11. The terrain becomes a trap. The Jeep used ditches, broken walls, tree lines, burned vehicles, places tanks couldn't enter. Every escape path became a firing angle. Enemy radio chatter changed tone. Laughter turned to confusion. Confusion turned to urgency. Urgency turned to panic. They asked, "How many defenders are there? Where is the armor support? Why can't we pin them down?" The answer was simple. There was no armor, just a Jeep. By late morning, the attack collapsed. Bodies lay scattered. Units retreated. Officers demanded explanations. Final count: 30 attackers dead. Losses on the defending side? Minimal. The Jeep survived. Still running. Still underestimated. When reinforcements arrived, they expected devastation. Instead, they found a secure route, a broken enemy advance, and a jeep covered in dust and empty shell casings. Commanders were stunned. Word traveled fast. Enemy troops no longer laughed at jeeps. They targeted them first. They feared them. Because they learned a lesson war teaches brutally. Size does not decide lethality. Speed, intelligence, and timing do. The incident proved mobility beats armor in certain fights. Psychological warfare matters. Underestimating the enemy is deadly. From that day on, light vehicles were used differently. Not as toys, as killers. When the enemy unit regrouped miles away, their commanders demanded answers. How did we lose so many men? Where was the armored resistance? Why did the advance collapse? No one wanted to speak. Finally, a shaken officer admitted the truth. It wasn't tanks. It wasn't artillery. It was a jeep. The room went silent. No one laughed anymore. The jeep survived not because it was strong, but because it was unpredictable. Heavy weapons were useless if they couldn't track the target. Rifles were useless if the shooter never saw the enemy twice. The jeep never followed roads, never repeated a route, never fired from the same position. Every second it stayed alive increased its psychological power. By midday, fear had spread faster than bullets. Enemy soldiers began firing at shadows, dust clouds, moving bushes. A nervous army is a defeated army. They wasted ammunition. They hesitated. They stopped advancing, all because of a vehicle they once mocked. The man behind the wheel understood something most soldiers never learn. You don't win by killing everyone. You win by making them stop trying. He avoided direct confrontation. He avoided heroics. He avoided predictable bravery. Instead, he used pressure. Constant pressure. His pattern was simple but devastating. Hit fast. Disappear instantly. Wait just long enough for the enemy to relax. Then strike again. Every pause felt like a trap. Every silence felt dangerous. The jeep became a ghost. 30 attackers did not die in one heroic stand. They died, one by one, in confusion, without understanding how. This destroyed morale faster than mass casualties ever could. The survivors felt hunted. By afternoon, enemy scouts began reporting sightings that made no sense. The jeep is everywhere. There must be more than one. It keeps coming back. There was still only one, but fear multiplied it. When Allied reinforcements finally arrived, they prepared for resistance. They found none. The enemy had withdrawn completely. Not pushed back, not destroyed. They left voluntarily. That is the highest form of battlefield victory. The report listed enemy casualties 30 confirmed, defensive losses minimal, equipment lost none, the jeep received no medal, the driver received no parade. But among soldiers the story spread quietly. And quietly, legends are born. Large wars remember. Generals. Tanks. Battles with thousands of dead. But small victories like this are often buried in reports. Yet these moments change wars more than people realize, because they teach armies how to think. After incidents like this, light vehicles were no longer treated as expendable. They were given better weapons, used for ambush roles, trained for hit-and-run warfare. The jeep had proven itself. Enemy doctrine eventually changed. They began targeting light vehicles first, using overwatch teams, moving slower, more cautiously. But caution costs time, and in war, time is blood. Survivors of that morning never forgot it. Years later, veterans admitted something uncomfortable. They feared the jeep more than tanks, because tanks were predictable. The jeep was not. This story isn't about a vehicle. It's about mindset. The attackers believed, strength wins wars, size equals power, numbers guarantee victory. They were wrong. Mockery creates blind spots. It makes soldiers careless. It makes commanders overconfident. It kills faster than bullets. The jeep survived because it was ignored, until it was too late. War rewards adaptation, speed, intelligence. It punishes arrogance. That morning proved it brutally. By sunset, the jeep was gone. Reassigned, refueled, sent somewhere else. Another road. Another mission. Another enemy who would underestimate it. This isn't just a war story. It's a warning. Never judge danger by appearance. Never underestimate what looks small. Never laugh too early. Because history is full of graves dug by confidence. In later briefings, senior officers quietly referenced the incident. Not by name, not officially, but the lesson was clear. Never underestimate light units. Fast vehicles, soldiers who think instead of charging. From that point on, training manuals began changing language. Speed was no longer described as supportive. It was described as decisive. Why heavy armor failed that day. Tanks were designed for domination, not surprise. They needed open ground, clear lines of fire, support units. The battlefield that morning offered none of that. The Jeep thrived in chaos. The tank would have died in it. This reversed the enemy's expectations. Gun and expectations are everything in war. Survivors later spoke about one thing they couldn't forget. Not the gunfire, the engine. A light, fast engine sound that appeared, disappeared, then returned from another direction. It became a warning. If you heard it, someone was about to die. The driver followed an unspoken rule. Never reveal your full power early. He fired just enough to cause casualties, trigger confusion, force movement. Then he stopped. This made the enemy doubt their own senses. Were they attacked? Or imagined it? That hesitation killed more men than bullets. Every second, soldiers make decisions. Advance or wait, fire or hold, run or fight. The Jeep disrupted decision-making. By forcing uncertainty, it removed confidence. And soldiers without confidence die faster. The most lethal moment didn't involve heavy fire. It involved silence. After several attacks, the Jeep vanished completely. Minutes passed, then more minutes. The enemy relaxed. Units regrouped. That's when the Jeep returned. From behind. That single maneuver caused the highest casualties. There was no final stand. No dramatic charge. No heroic last defense. Just confusion, isolation, mistakes. 30 men died believing they were facing something far larger. Psychological warfare finished what bullets started. After the incident, the driver was interviewed briefly. He said very little. One line was recorded. I just kept moving. That was it. No bragging. No exaggeration. No hero speech. Because real professionals don't need them. Soon, enemy patrols changed behavior. When they saw a Jeep, they slowed down. They spread out. They requested support. One small vehicle now forced major tactical changes. That is power. By stopping the attack, the Jeep prevented a breakthrough, protected supply lines, saved dozens of friendly units downstream. Those lives never appeared in reports. But they mattered. If the enemy had advanced successfully, a major engagement would have followed. Hundreds could have died. Instead, one Jeep erased the need for a battle. That is the highest efficiency of war. Steel stops bullets. Speed avoids them. The Jeep avoided every weapon meant to destroy it. It didn't resist force. It escaped it. The Jeep had no armor plating. But it had timing, terrain, intelligence. These became its invisible shield, stronger than steel. History often teaches bigger is better, but war repeatedly proves the opposite. Big weapons win battles. Small, smart weapons win wars. Modern warfare still struggles with the same problem. Expensive machines, slow response, predictable tactics. And still, fast, underestimated tools cause the most disruption. For the survivors, that morning never ended. They carried it home. They dreamed about it. They feared small engines forever. A Jeep became a ghost. Official numbers listed 30 dead. Unofficially? Likely more. Because chaos hides casualties, the vehicle was repaired, refueled, reassigned. But the lesson stayed. In every briefing, every training session, every cautious advance. Mockery lowers awareness. It invites mistakes. It creates openings. That morning, mockery opened the door to death. The Jeep didn't win because it was powerful. It won because it wasn't expected. It wasn't respected. It wasn't prepared for, until it was too late. Remember this story, not because of the Jeep, but because of the lesson. The thing you ignore, the threat you laugh at, the danger you dismiss, that's the one that ends you. Long after the front lines moved, long after the guns fell silent, this story survived in fragments. It lived in mess halls, veteran reunions, quiet conversations between soldiers, never officially celebrated, never dramatized in films, but remembered. because it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like a warning. There was no medal ceremony for the Jeep. No headlines. No heroic photographs. Because armies often reward visibility, scale, spectacle. This victory had none of those. It was quiet, efficient, almost invisible, and that made it uncomfortable. The most truthful war stories are the ones told quietly. They aren't polished. They aren't exaggerated. They aren't shouted. They're whispered. Because people who saw real combat rarely need applause. After the incident, the driver was reassigned like any other soldier. No special treatment. No interviews, no fame. He drove other routes, faced other dangers, survived other mornings, and never tried to repeat what happened. Because true professionals don't chase legends. They move on. Years later, someone asked him about that morning. He paused, then said, "They made mistakes." "I didn't." That was all. No drama, no pride, just truth. Decades later, enemy archives revealed something telling. Internal documents described the incident as a failure caused by underestimation of light mobile resistance. No mention of incompetence. No mention of poor leadership. Just one word repeated again and again: underestimation. This was not an isolated event. Throughout history, small forces defeat large ones. Fast units destroy slow armies. Ignored threats become fatal ones. This Jeep was not an exception. It was a reminder. The attackers believed they were invincible that morning. They had numbers, weapons, momentum. What they lacked was humility. And humility is survival. The most dangerous moment is not when bullets fly. It's when soldiers believe this will be easy. That belief kills more men than enemy fire. Modern militaries invest billions in machines. Yet the same weakness remains: predictability, overconfidence, rigid thinking, and still today, small mobile threats cause the biggest disruptions. Nothing has changed. The Jeep had no advanced systems, no armor upgrades, no intelligence network. Just a man, a machine, and awareness. That combination remains unbeatable. The Jeep didn't think. The Jeep didn't decide. The Jeep didn't adapt. A human did. This story isn't about machinery. It's about judgment under pressure. The most powerful legends are not complex. They are built on one decision, one moment. One mistake avoided. That morning turned on seconds. That route was never attacked the same way again. Enemy forces avoided it, bypassed it, respected it. One morning changed future behavior. That is strategic impact. To allies it became confidence. Proof that brains beat force. To enemies it became caution, doubt, fear of the unseen. Same machine, different meaning. The laughter that morning lasted minutes. The consequences lasted lifetimes. Every laugh before battle is a gamble. Sometimes you lose everything. History did not judge the Jeep. History judged the arrogance that faced it. And history was unforgiving. War does not reward fairness. War does not reward strength alone. War rewards preparation, adaptation, respect for the unknown. The attackers ignored all three. Not for shock, not for numbers, not for violence, but for the lesson. A lesson written without speeches. If you strip away uniforms, weapons, and flags, this story becomes universal. Underestimate something, ignore warning signs, assume superiority, and reality will correct you, violently. Most viewers think this story is about bravery. It's not. Bravery without thinking gets people killed. This story is about control. Control of space, time, fear. The Jeep didn't overpower the enemy. It controlled their reactions. The driver understood something ancient warriors knew. The battlefield exists first in the mind. Once fear enters the mind, aim worsens, communication breaks, orders lose authority. That morning, the Jeep didn't destroy soldiers. It destroyed certainty. Later analysis showed something shocking. Most enemy fire missed completely, hit empty ground. Was fired too early or too late. Why? Because soldiers fired emotionally, not tactically. Fear rushed them. The turning point wasn't the first casualty. It was the first pause. When soldiers stopped advancing and started looking around, that pause gave fear time to grow, and fear spreads faster than bullets. The Jeep didn't hide. It moved so fast that it became invisible. By the time the enemy aimed, the Jeep was already gone.
Speed erased targeting.
Military doctrine teaches anticipation. The Jeep destroyed anticipation. It attacked when it shouldn't, from where it shouldn't, and then disappeared. This broke tactical logic. Chasing requires confidence. Confidence was already gone. Every attempt to pursue felt like walking into a trap. So no one chased, and the Jeep stayed free. To the enemy, the battlefield felt chaotic. To the driver, it was controlled, because chaos only exists when you don't understand the pattern. He did. One Jeep acted like 10 vehicles. Multiple firing positions. A coordinated unit. Not because of firepower, because of perception. Modern wars still prove the same rule. Fast ignored threats force slow, powerful armies into mistakes. Technology changes. Human psychology does not. The driver never used full force. He used just enough. Enough to scare. Enough to confuse. Enough to delay. Restraint kept him alive. If he had chased kills, he would have died. Instead, he chose survival over heroics. That decision saved lives. It challenges what people want to believe. That power wins. That size dominates. That technology guarantees victory. This story says otherwise, and that makes people uneasy. Underestimation didn't just kill 30 men. It delayed operations, changed routes, forced new tactics, all because of one ignored threat. If there is one lesson to take from this story, it is this. Never judge danger by appearance. Never laugh before the fight. Never assume safety, because the smallest thing you ignore may already be aiming at you. Fear in combat is not weakness. It is biology. When soldiers feel threatened, vision narrows. Hearing distorts. Decision-making slows. The Jeep triggered this response repeatedly. Not once, not twice. Again and again. The first casualty shattered the illusion of safety. Before that moment, this is easy. After that moment, this is wrong. That shift is deadly. No officer ordered a retreat. No command told them to slow down. Fear did it automatically. Soldiers began copying each other's hesitation. That's how panic spread, silently, organically, irreversibly. Predators don't charge blindly. They test. Observe. Strike weakness. The Jeep behaved like a predator, and the attackers behaved like prey. In most battles, someone tries to be brave. Charge forward. Take command. Restore order. That never happened here. Because uncertainty kills leadership first. At one point, enemy troops believed the threat was gone. Silence convinced them. Silence is the most dangerous lie in war. That's when casualties spiked again. The Jeep didn't fight one battle. It created many small battles. Each squad thought, this fight is ours. They were wrong. Ambushes don't just kill. They humiliate. They tell soldiers, you were not in control. That realization is devastating. Once discipline cracks, it never fully returns in that engagement. Orders feel distant. Trust collapses. Self-preservation takes over. That happened early. Everything after was inevitable. The Jeep reflected the enemy's flaws back at them. Overconfidence. Rigid thinking. Lack of imagination. It didn't need to be strong. It needed them to be careless. Some lessons are uncomfortable. They suggest big budgets don't guarantee success. Simple tools can defeat complex plans. Ego is lethal. That's why stories like this stay quiet. Every battle has two wars. One with weapons. One with minds. The Jeep won the second one quickly. The first ended naturally after that. Veterans admitted later. They never trusted easy missions again. That fear followed them longer than wounds. Modern armies still fear drones, light vehicles, small mobile threats. Why? Because they learned this lesson before. History doesn't shout warnings, it whispers them. This is one of those whispers. People remember this story because it feels wrong. Because it breaks expectations. Because deep down everyone knows it could happen again. This story is not about bravery. Not about patriotism, not about victory. It's about awareness. The moment you stop respecting danger, you become vulnerable to it. They laughed at the Jeep. They underestimated the threat. And history recorded the result without emotion. 30 dead, one vehicle. One morning, one mistake. Survivors didn't just lose comrades. They lost confidence. In later operations, these same units moved slower, questioned orders more often, and hesitated at moments where speed mattered. That single morning rewired how they fought. Defeat can be blamed on strength, humiliation cannot. Being beaten by something small attacks pride. And pride is the foundation of military confidence. The Jeep shattered that foundation. Before combat, soldiers often believe, we are prepared, we are stronger, we control this situation. The Jeep proved all three could be false at the same time. The attackers wanted a fast breakthrough. Fast victories create carelessness. Carelessness creates openings. That opening was the Jeep. Soldiers fear what they cannot map. They never knew how many defenders existed, where attacks would come from. When the next shot would be fired, uncertainty became heavier than enemy fire. Leadership requires clarity. Clarity died early that morning. When leaders don't understand the battlefield, authority collapses, orders become guesses, and guesses get people killed. Every time it appeared, it asked a question. Are you safe here? No one could answer yes. There was no retreat order, no trumpet, no radio command. The attack ended because no one wanted to move forward anymore. That is not defeat, that is psychological surrender. The Jeep didn't rush. It let time work against the attackers. Fatigue grew, nerves frayed, mistakes multiplied. Time finished the job. 30 deaths were the result, not the goal. The goal was delay, and delay was achieved perfectly. Everything beyond that was consequence. Beyond the dead were the wounded. Not all injuries were physical. Some never returned to frontline duty. Fear follows soldiers home. Impatience kills. The Jeep waited. The enemy rushed. That contrast decided everything. Fair fights are for boxing rings. War rewards unfair advantages. Speed, surprise, confusion. The Jeep used all three mercilessly. Big armies depend on predictability. Small threats destroy predictability. That makes them terrifying. That word is easy. The attackers believed this mission was easy. Easy missions are where discipline dies. He didn't chase. He didn't celebrate. He didn't panic. Discipline kept him alive longer than armor ever could. Every unnecessary shot increases exposure. Every unnecessary movement creates risk. The Jeep used restraint like a weapon. Technology evolves. Human behavior does not. Arrogance, fear, hesitation, these remain unchanged. That's why this story still matters. History enjoys humiliating power. It reminds empires, armies, and commanders, you are never invincible. The Jeep was history's reminder. When the enemy finally pulled back, the silence felt unnatural. No victory cheers, no pursuit. Just relief. Relief is not triumph. It's survival. It proved that mobility beats mass, awareness beats firepower, humility beats arrogance. Every single time. They didn't lose because they were weak. They lost because they believed they were strong enough. And war punished that belief without mercy. The most terrifying weapon that morning was not the gun. It was silence. Silence after shots. Silence after movement. Silence after expectation. Silence forced imagination to fill the gaps. And imagination is cruel. Noise can be measured. Silence cannot. When soldiers hear nothing, they don't feel safe. They feel watched. The Jeep mastered silence better than gunfire. Every second without contact felt wrong. Every shadow felt hostile. The attackers weren't resting. They were waiting to be attacked. That mental state drained strength faster than marching. It never tried to finish the fight, because finishing creates risk. Instead, it let fear rot the enemy from the inside. That is patience, weaponized. Normally, terrain provides comfort. Trees give cover. Roads give direction. Buildings give safety. That morning, terrain betrayed them. Every place felt dangerous. Advance on risk ambush. Hold 'em risk isolation. Retreat, risk pursuit. No option felt safe. That's when battles are already lost. The Jeep didn't trap them physically. It trapped them psychologically. They moved inside an invisible net of fear. And fear tightens with every step. Earlier confidence made later hesitation worse. The bigger the confidence, the sharper the collapse. That contrast shattered morale. Strategy requires calm. Calm was gone. Survival instincts replaced planning. Once that happens, outcomes are predictable. Every counter required time, coordination, clear sight. None of those existed anymore. The Jeep destroyed prerequisites of resistance. Numbers only matter when coordination exists. Without coordination, numbers create congestion. Congestion creates panic. Panic creates casualties. Each small ambush felt insignificant, but together they formed a pattern. Patterns teach soldiers one thing: you are losing control. They realized they were reacting, not acting. Once that happens, the enemy owns the battle. Backup slows decision-making. The Jeep was free because it was alone. Freedom is dangerous when wielded correctly. The attacks felt targeted, not random, personal.